Hey you, are you tired of pulling chest or flipping to falsetto? Do you want to sing in a mix? Then you should keep watching this video. Welcome back, guys, to the #1 channel on YouTube for learning how to sing. I'm Gregory West, and before we get started, make sure you check me out on TikTok and Instagram for more content like this. So what I mean by mix is finding a vocal coordination that allows you to sing higher in your range without going to falsetto and without pulling your chest voice higher, resulting in a yelly sound. Now, there's nothing wrong with either of those two things in their proper context, but as a singer, you do need to have more vocal options. If you can't sing E, or ooh, in your upper range, or you can't use nasal consonants without flipping to falsetto, then you probably don't have a mix developed. The magic trio are 3 actions that you can do as a singer to shift out of your lower chest voice into your mix or shift to falsetto. Since this video is about mixed voice, we obviously want to avoid falsetto, but the fact that doing it tempts falsetto tells us something important. Now, the point where your voice unwillingly breaks into falsetto while maintaining the magic trio is where your mixed voice will be. So the magic trio is keeping a low larynx, keeping a small mouth shape, and keeping the volume down. The hardest part about this is learning to control your larynx height. So let's go over that real quick. So your larynx can move up and down, which affects the sound of your voice drastically. Let's try some simple stuff to raise and lower it. All right, first, suck a spaghetti noodle up. You heard me. Suck a spaghetti noodle up. Now, when I do that, you could actually see my thyroid cartilage, which is a component of the larynx, move down. Notice that we are getting the larynx down while we inhale. Now, when you inhale, your body is expanding outward in space. You're basically like an inflatable airbag. So what we want to do is maintain that position with our body rather than inhaling and then collapsing. Think of it like you get a certain feeling when you inhale this way, and when you stop breathing, you want to try to maintain that same feeling. Oh. The next thing to notice is the position of your tongue inside your mouth. When your larynx is not lowered, the tongue is going to be more elevated inside of your mouth, particularly the back part of the tongue. We can also just think of this as the amount of space inside of our mouths. A lot of space is created when we lower the larynx, and a lot of space is lost when we raise it. Now let's try some panting. I want you to pant like a little chihuahua. You guys better not make me be the only one panting, okay? Now I want you to pant like a big old German shepherd. Notice the position of your tongue and your larynx on both of those. Once you find this, hold the position of your larynx down while we try to make some sound. Hey, E. All right, so the other 2 aspects of the magic trio are volume and mouth shape. So on an ooh vowel with a low larynx, small mouth shape, and relatively low volume, let's see what happens as we go up in pitch. All right, that's enough of that. Now, what you may feel happen, especially if you're new to this, is a break into falsetto, like this. Or alternatively, you may be raising the larynx. And remember, that is not a part of the magic trio. Now remember, where that break is actually happening is where your mixed voice is trying to develop and coordinate. If you raise your larynx, you're cheating and you're not really getting the benefit of the magic trio. If you start to raise your larynx, if you open your mouth more, if you get louder, all of these things are going to delay your transition into mix and make you pull chest more. You may get higher with this strategy, but it's not really developing and cultivating your mixed voice. All right, so if trying to keep that magic trio works for you right away, then that is fantastic. Good job. The magic trio is kind of extreme. It's gonna cause you to mix at the earliest possible point in your range. I do think that that's a really good thing to practice as a singer to expand your flexibility and your vocal options, but it's not completely necessary in order to sing in a mix. When you're first learning to do this, make the extreme version your goal, but understand that failing is okay and necessary as you stumble your way towards it. So let's try keeping the larynx down, keeping the mouth shape small, but allowing ourselves to raise the volume as much as we feel is helpful. Now make sure you guys track the notes that you're actually doing with a piano or a pitch app, because you want to see, is what you're doing actually helping you to get higher or lower? You don't really want to trust your own sensations like, oh yeah, I think that was a little bit higher or easier, I don't know. Alright, I'm not gonna lie guys, this doesn't seem to be going really well for me. I just ate some fried chicken and I think it's giving me some phlegm or something. Lesson learned, I guess I can't eat my fried chicken while I'm filming. Anyway, you get the point. The higher you go in your range, generally speaking, the louder you need to be in order to not flip to falsetto. If we keep a really low volume in chest voice and try to go high with that, we're just gonna end up transitioning to falsetto early. Now, even if we let the larynx raise and we open the mouth, we're still gonna end up in falsetto early if we don't increase the volume. I'm bringing this up so that you understand that in order to not transition from chest to falsetto, you need to get louder. Now, we don't want the same volume that our loud, yelled, pulled chest voice has, but we can't maintain a whisper volume. Now, the trick with volume and your voice is that it's actually relative to the pitch. What a loud volume is for your voice in the low range is not the same thing as a loud volume for your voice in the high range. The capacity of your lower range is going to be much lower in terms of volume than the capacity of your upper range in terms of volume. So when we're using the magic trio, even though we're supposed to keep a low volume, it needs to be a relatively low volume, which means that it gets louder as we go up in pitch, but it doesn't get too loud. Now, just like with volume, a smaller mouth shape in the upper range is also going to cause you to either shift to falsetto or to find more of a mix. So now, just like how we let the volume increase as we went up in pitch, we're actually going to try to let our mouth shape open up as well. We're still keeping our low larynx, and we are kind of keeping the mouth more closed, just not quite as closed as ooh. So we're just kind of playing around and messing with the variables in the magic trio. So now, instead of ooh lips, let's try some oh lips. Oh. 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 Now what happens is the higher I go, if I don't open my mouth quite enough, I'm gonna start to shift more to falsetto. And the same thing happens if I don't increase the volume. Oh. You hear how the sound gets a little bit lighter and a little bit thinner? Oh. Now that time I let my mouth open up, but I didn't increase the volume. So again, I'm starting to transition into something closer to falsetto, but still kind of in the mixy territory. So now I'm gonna go back to keeping the larynx down, opening my mouth up a little bit more, and letting myself get a little bit louder. Oh, oh. Now I'm really starting to notice a quality change in my voice, and it's starting to take on a very different character. Oh, oh, oh. The interesting thing is that it even sounds like I'm changing vowels, right? Like it sounds like I'm going from O to like a at the top. And I'm not actually moving my body or my shape of, my mouth or my lips or my tongue to make that happen. It's just passively happening. So you could even think of chest voice and mixed voice in terms of vowel. If the vowel is going to go from a more open sound, like from O to something more closed, like without you doing anything, that's a sign that you're getting into your mix. Oh. Now, if I really tried to keep that O, I couldn't get into my mix. I would have to start pulling my chest. Oh. And in order to accomplish that, my larynx has to rise. All right, so now let's try keeping the larynx down, but doing whatever we want to the mouth and the volume. You hear how that top note really has a different quality than the bottom ones? It sounds really open. It doesn't really sound like a mix. It starts to change quality right there. If I were to let my larynx raise, I would probably pull chest because I'm trying to go for a louder volume and I'm opening my mouth like this. All right, so the cool thing is the more extreme that you make the magic trio, the earlier your voice is going to start to transition out of that chest voice and into something thinner in the direction of a mix. And the more I flip the actions of the magic trio by raising the larynx, opening the mouth more, and getting louder, the more I'm actually going to delay my transition into mixed voice. So let's see in the most extreme version of the magic trio that we started with, where does my voice want to shift into mix? Well, I'm definitely already feeling it there. I actually start to feel these mixed voice sensations all the way on a B flat 3. That's crazy because you normally just think, that's not high. How can that be a mix? That feels like my chest voice. Well, the nature of your sensations are going to change when you start applying the magic trio. And really listen to how that character or quality of my voice is changing. Ooh. If it weren't to mix, it would sound like ooh. You can hear how my voice kind of retains a more open quality to it. When I do it louder like that, I'm breaking one of the magic trio rules, of course, and I actually do feel a difference with my voice. I can tell that the thing that I'm going to when I keep the volume down and obey all the rules of the magic trio is very similar to what I'm doing to sing really, really high notes in mix. Ooh, it's kind of got a little bit of a cry feeling to it. And it feels kind of similar to this. All right, now let's just leave the larynx alone and let it do its thing. So let's try to put the volume high and leave the mouth opening relatively closed. But remember, we're not concerned with keeping this down. Well, that was interesting, because I'm pretty sure if I opened my mouth more, I would have gone into more of a belty pulled chest sound. Now I'm going to keep it closed again. The only difference I'm making here is that I'm not letting myself open my mouth. Now I know that some of you guys are just gonna crack when you try this. For example, if you hold out a high note, with your mouth really wide open on a very chesty sound, some of you guys are gonna have no problem with that. But then when you close your mouth down, you're gonna flip to falsetto, like this. Hey! And remember what I said in the beginning. Where your voice flips to falsetto as you start to apply the rules of the magic trio is where your mix will be. So if you guys can just figure out how to apply those rules without flipping, that's where your mix is going to be every time. So these 3 combinations of the magic trio are things that you can mess with. Play around with various combinations of them and see if you stumble onto something new. I'm not going to tell you guys what the exact correct formula for you is, because I honestly don't know, and nobody knows. It's something that you have to figure out through experimentation and feeling your voice and your body out. All right, so now I'm going to give all you struggling baritones a cheat. This is something I do in my private vocal lessons a lot. And by the way, if you're interested, you can find the link to my email in the description below. Hit me up. I would love to work with you and help you take your voice to the next level. So remember that pooled chest voice, shouted type of sound? Hey! Let's try to make that sound our starting place and see if we can't reverse engineer to the magic trio. So let's take our yelly sound and just manipulate the mouth opening. Hey! Now, the smaller I made my mouth opening, the more I started to shift away from that yelly sound into something that we would identify as a mix. At the end, I actually closed my mouth to an and that's when I really lost that yelly character. No one would hear that as pulling chest. So if you're just starting out with expanding your vocal range, try actually starting with this and then trying to manipulate your mouth opening. Go from an opening that allows you to get to that note in chest voice and start to slowly close it down. Now, if your voice gets unstable or shaky or starts to get a little bit of a creak in the sound, like this, just remember that it's going to take time to develop, but that you are going in the right direction. So I think of chest voice and falsetto as existing on a spectrum, and I can choose the amount of chestiness or falsetto-iness that I want to have to my voice. This is really only applicable to the higher notes where the entire idea of mixed voice is relevant. So I think of it like my quieter high notes are more towards falsetto and my louder high notes are more towards chest. In the low range, this doesn't stand to be true. And that's because a quiet low chest voice doesn't start to feel more like falsetto, it just feels like quiet chest. But if I do that same thing in my upper range, that quiet sound is just gonna shift to falsetto. So the more I move towards the magic trio in the high range, the more I'm gonna move towards falsetto. Now, if we've got a spectrum of chest voice to falsetto, the in-betweens do make sense to be called a mix. And that's because it does feel like a blend between these two extremes, chest voice and falsetto. All right, now here's another key piece of information. The reason that the vowels E and U always sound mixed in the high range is because you can't attain the same level of chestiness with all vocal tract shapes. Your voice just doesn't work that way. I mean, think about it, guys. When do you ever hear a yelly vocal quality on an E in the high range? You never do. It just doesn't have that character to it. In order to successfully sing, you have to learn the limits of each mode that your voice has and play by those rules. If you need help expanding your vocal options, then hit me up for a voice lesson. Again, my email is in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.